So is the problem diversity itself, or is it the way that it's done? Well, we're going to look at two comics to see what the answer to that question is. So this comic, Generations, this was one of my earlier comics videos. I hated this issue. I very nearly ripped it in half, and I'm glad I didn't, because now I can get another video out of it. This was my so far only issue that I've read that has Riri Williams in it. And Riri Williams has become something of a joke in this whole Comicsgate community. Like, I don't know how much money Diversity in Comics has made off of just talking about how terrible the Invincible Iron Man series that stars her is, but I imagine it's a pretty penny. Everybody, like, Riri Williams has just become shorthand for terrible diversity hire character. But why is that? Is it just because she's black? Is it just because there's a little black girl in a comic? And let's face it, most of these people doing these comics, especially the videos, like a lot of the commenters, a lot of the people on Twitter, they represent a wide range of the population, but most of the people doing the videos, especially the people that got big doing the videos, they're like me, they're white men. So is it just that we don't like black characters, or is it something else? So in the current Deathstroke series, Deathstroke is leading a team, and one of the members of the team is this person here. And at first, I didn't know who this person was. I figured, she's Teen Titans or something. I don't really read Teen Titans, so whatever. Then I found out that that little circle on her chest is because she's the new Power Girl. And when I first heard that, I got kind of triggered. Like, the idea that you're going to replace one of the most recognizable DC superheroines with... I'm not really sure how old she's supposed to be, because I did, like, for this video I read up about her. I couldn't tell, like, there were parts of her backstory that seemed like she should be, like, 19 or 20, and other elements it seems like she should only be 15. I don't really know. But the point is that she, like Riri, is a female, young, black genius who is taking over the role of a legacy character. But this person, Tanya Spears, the new Power Girl, people very rarely talk about her, whereas Riri Williams is just shorthand for stupid diversity character. So why exactly is that? How did that happen? So this Generations issue, even people that like Riri, and even people that liked Bendis's Invincible Iron Man series, which they've completely retooled that for Legacy. Even people that liked it, a lot of them said that this issue was really weak, and it is really weak. It's actually, if you don't like Riri Williams, it's painful. She's very arrogant, she's very rude, and she's very egotistical, and this whole book is just about emotionally validating her, basically. She finds out that she's basically going to eventually be the savior of mankind or something. The Deathstroke series, and this is issue 23, I have issues 22 through 25, and 25 just came out last week. These three issues, 22, 23, and 24, I really had a hard time getting into them. You have to know a lot of continuity that I don't really know about, because a lot of it's very recent. I've never heard all that much about the Teen Titans or about Deathstroke in particular. Like, I think the idea of him is cool, but the number of comics I've read with him could probably count them on two hands. So he's not a character I've ever really been in. Plus, you just have to know so much about all these other characters here, and I just flat out don't. Like, the last issue, and just a brief review, this issue was actually really good, but it was really good because it focused entirely on Deathstroke. There was none of this Defiance team thing. There was none of this, none of these other weird things with character relationships and continuity that you had to have a lot of knowledge about. This was just straight up all about Deathstroke, which, by the way, I never really realized that Deathstroke is basically an evil Captain America. Like, this issue makes it kind of explicit, but that never occurred to me. Yeah, so that's just a brief review of that. But this one features the new Power Girl a lot, so I'm just going to keep focusing on that one. So yeah, Tanya Spears, she shares a lot in common with Riri. She became a intern at Star Industries, which was Power Girl's old R&D firm that she was the head of, for reasons that I could not discern, and I'm not sure that have ever been looked at. Karen Starr, Power Girl, ended up taking a real liking to her And when she went into her home dimension or something, she ended up somehow giving her powers. But obviously not Power Girl's powers, because here you can see that her power seems to be shape-changing. So not only is she kind of like Riri Williams, she's also kind of like Kamala Khan. I'm not exactly sure what her powers are, but size changing and powers that go along with that seem to be the main focus of it. Power Girl, the real one, Kara Zor-El from Earth 2, from a universe that no longer exists. The real Power Girl she's a character that's always struggled to find an audience. I mean, she has her fans. The Palmiotti Amanda Connor series back in the late 2000s, I mean, that went for like 30 issues or something, so, you know, a sizable amount. She does have an audience, but for the most part, people only care about the idea of her, which was that she was a very fit, muscular woman with really large breasts. And people either liked that or hated that, even if they knew next to nothing about the character herself. Jeff Johns tried really, really hard to get people to care about her in Infinite Crisis, and he was moderately successful at that, but the problem is that the pathos and the story that he was deriving it from were based on elements that were very, very specific to that time and to that continuity, and DC's rebooted itself, 2-3 times since then? So that story didn't work anymore. So the old Power Girl is essentially gone, even replaced by a teenage black girl. On the one hand, I like the look of the old Power Girl. One of the reasons I got the Ultimate Edition to Injustice, and it was only one reason, there were many, but one of the reasons was because Power Girl was skin for. But if I'm being honest with myself, the number of times I've bought a comic or cared about something solely because the old Power Girl was in it is very slim. I mean, I bought a few issues of the old Amanda Connor series, but beyond that, yeah, not really. I mean, I like her well enough. I like her look and her personality well enough, but I never really cared about her all that much. And I feel like most people are kind of the same way. Most people who regularly read DC Comics are kind of the same way. And that stands in contrast to Riri Williams. Now, on the one hand, yes, both of these characters are 15-year-old black girls who are taking over for an established character, but Riri Williams, she didn't take over for a B-lister. They made this girl, Ironheart, Riri Williams, the star of a major Marvel title, one of their biggest characters, starring one of their biggest books, written by one of their biggest writers. They call it Invincible Iron Man, but on the cover of most of those issues, you have this 15-year-old black girl on it. Not only that, I haven't read the early issues with her in it. This is, in fact, this generation's issue is the only issue that I've read with Riri Williams in it, but from what I can gather, she barely knew Tony Stark. There was never like a passing the torch kind of thing. It was that Tony Stark went into a coma, and then an AI or something for her. But on the other hand, she worked with Power Girl. She worked at Star Industries. There was time to get some rapport built up between them. Not much, but some time. But yeah, and not only that, like, nobody's pushing the new Power Girl. Like, as far as I know, she's never had her own series or miniseries. They made her a supporting character on a team that's headlined by a pretty popular character. And that's actually something the Champions could stand to do work with. Like, Champions is another book that people just really do not like, especially in this community, and it's not selling terribly well. So what if they did that? What if they had it headlined by a major well-liked character, I don't know, Moon Knight and the Champion, something like that. a older mentor character that can pass the torch on to these younger characters, or at least help them to come into their own. I mean, that's generally how these things work. In this one, at least, you have the pathos of an established character fighting his demons. So, if you believe that diversity is a positive goal, and that representation is a goal which should be striven towards, and I'm not at all convinced of that, by the way. I am not at all convinced that diversity or representation are necessarily positive things in and of themselves. But if you accept that they are, the important thing, if you're a major media company like this, ought to be to integrate it the idea of diversity in such a way that it doesn't alienate those like me that either don't care or others that feel that like diversity is just a code for some kind of political agenda. If I were working at Marvel and I had almost complete control, except that I was told that we're going to introduce this new character, this Riri Williams character, and we're going to groom her and judge audience reactions for her to be a replacement for Iron Man. The way that I would have done it was I would have had the Invincible Iron Man series, and I would have dealt with him dealing with the aftermath of Civil War II, which if I had complete control, Civil War II would never have happened, but that's neither here nor there. And Riri has been a backup story in the mainline Invincible Iron Man series. Like, the mainline series was told about Tony, and the backup series, because old comics used to have, not always, but they often had a backup story that took between 4 and 6 pages at the end, where they would tell the story of characters that wanted to promote. Either that, or and Marvel Comics Presents was how most characters that you care about got introduced. So you would have the backup with Riri, and you would gauge audience reaction of the backup as it happened. And if people liked it, then you would start putting her in other stuff. You would start having her make appearances on Champions. You would have her maybe start featuring more in the main series. You would have that sort of thing. But there would never have been a point where she is the star of a book that's called Invincible Iron Man. Buy an issue of something called Invincible Iron Man, it's not too much to expect that it's going to actually feature Invincible Iron Man and not this snot-nosed brat of a 15-year-old. I mean, Marvel used to know how to introduce new characters, and they've completely forgotten. The only character launch that I think was successful, at least from sort of a organic point of view, was Gwenpool, because that's what Gwenpool did. She was introduced in an issue of Howard the Duck, of all things. But there was interest in her appearances, and then they ended up putting her in her own series, and I think they should have done the same thing with Riri Williams. By the way, I think that Bendis leaving Marvel is a great thing. I don't think DC is going to let him be nearly as self-indulgent as Marvel did. I think that he's going to feel the need to step up his game, and I think DC is going to try to push him to doing that. So I think we're going to get some pretty good stories from Bendis. The two rumors that I've heard is that they're either going to put him on Challengers of the Unknown or Zatanna. Challengers of the Unknown would be great because it's one of those things you could kind of do anything with and nobody really cares about it. Like, you could make it into a masterpiece, but if you care. Zatanna, if you watch the channel enough, you know Zatanna is my favorite DC character, but I actually wouldn't mind Bendis on a Zatanna ongoing. To be fair, I wouldn't mind any Zatanna ongoing as long as it's not written by Nick Spencer. As long as he doesn't turn her into Jessica Jones, though, I'm fine. And then if they put her on a bigger book, I don't think they should do that. I think it should be a Jack Kirby style. Give me your lowest selling book and I'll make it your best selling book. I think that part of the reason that Riri was done the way she was just because Bendis had all these ideas and Marvel just let him do it. I mean, we know for a fact that she's basically kind of a bedtime story for his daughter, which that's kind of sweet until you actually read issues like this and makes you want to rip the damn thing in half. He was too close to it. This was too personal for him, and he's just been at Marvel too long. So I think it's a good thing that he moved on. So back to talking about this. So here you have a fairly well-known character, or a fairly well-known superhero name that's being taken over by a largely unknown character. They're not pushing her in the forefront of a more headlining book. They're not, like, it's not Deathstroke, but it's actually starring her. It's starring this ensemble, and the book is still about Deathstroke. Whereas the Iron Man series, at least before this Legacy stuff, did not star Iron Man at all. It was all about Riri and her struggle, even though it was called Invincible Iron Man. Like, I'm not a big fan of this, but this makes a lot more sense than this. This is how to do it. This is how not to do it. And there's a reason why this gets complained about when... So, yeah, tell me what you think. Tell me if this character has like, decent stories, if Tanya appeared in other things that flesh her out more. In any case, this is Unranked Chevron signing off.